In the 17th century, an inspiring host gathered people together, the purpose to increase their knowledge through conversation. These gatherings were called salons. Guests would debate a topic for the evening, mostly books, then eat and drink tea. Welcome to this high tea this afternoon, to also our guests who are joining us virtually. Ladies and gentlemen, today we'll be discussing an interesting book called The Real Life. I know it, I'm looking at you, the visionary editor. Real Life and Business Minds, edited by Dr. Mpedi. The book consists of 32 chapters. Of course, we won't discuss all the chapters, but we'll touch on a few so that we can engage. The aim is that you also get that book and read it for yourselves and learn, from these great professionals. This is the second time that we're discussing a book which is a collection of chapters in edited volume. And I delayed everything because really I needed this book to be discussed this month during Women's Month. Let's give it for women, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Petla, welcome to the great University of Johannesburg. I also would like to extend a special word of welcome to some of the authors present here today who contributed chapters. You will hear from them. I will introduce them individually so that they can share with us the contribution that they have made. You're leading this group, and you're working with a really dynamic group of men and women. I must emphasize that. It's Women's Month. People tend to think, yes, men are a problem, but I say men can and are and must be part of the solution. And in the book, you have a nice mix of men who contributed. So you have got 32 chapters in the book, but before that, I want you to, because I know I will not do justice to your impressive resume. What I want to do, I normally talk a lot during the high tea, but this time I want to listen more, give you the chance to engage with staff and students and friends of the university. And I want you to really introduce yourself and introduce the real life and business minds to our guests this afternoon. One of the reasons is when I had a look at your resume, I saw that you also specialize in obesity. And I realized that my six-pack from my karate days is gone. Now it's one pack, and I shouldn't have put on such type of clothing. So I'm doing stomach in. Over to you, Doctor.
All right. So good afternoon again to each and everyone. Thank you so much for making time to give us an ear and hear what our book is all about. And absolutely, thank you so much, Prof, for the platform that you've given us, for us to be able to share, because even if you have something beautiful, but you have no one to share it with, it's meaningless. So we appreciate you. And we trust that our book and just our presence here will mean something to you, and your life will never be the same. Just to introduce myself, it's a lot of pressure for me to introduce myself because I don't know which parts to introduce or not. But from an overview, because we're also in an academic setting, I'll introduce myself as Dr. Mpedi. Mpedi. So Mpedi ke a se kgona, ke re fihla mare se kgona Mpedi. Le bolla Setswana, Mpedi a bolla Setswana. So nna re bolla Sepedi, ke tswa Sekhukhune. Ra gešo papa ka kwa ga Mampuru, mama ka kwa ga Mogale. I'm a medical doctor by profession. After I completed my medical degree, I opened a private practice. But because I come from an entrepreneurial family, my grandfather was a great entrepreneur from Jane First. So I was more inclined to business. So my father actually encouraged me to do an MBA, so I also have an MBA. Afterwards, then I worked for a while. Currently, I'm busy with an advanced master's degree in clinical psychology and clinical neuropsychology and emotional wellness. I'm absolutely passionate about mental health, as you would call it. So mental health is a kind of an like on top type of description, but it's wellness because the mental health part just reflects your whole being, because when you're not mentally okay, you cannot function and do what you're supposed to do, because the mind is what is responsible for execution of responsibilities and actions. I'm also passionate. I'm still practicing as a medical doctor part-time, and recently have been appointed as a group CEO for a company that is focused in mining, agriculture, property and energy. So you also notice that I'm quite versatile. I can go into any field because eventually it's about how you think about yourself. Everything is a concept. So even school is not necessarily that, when you go out there, they're going to ask you an equation for maths, for example. It's about you being able to apply your mind on anything that you can do, so that when you understand that you are made of everything that you need, and you work on yourself though, because it's not going to come to you. And no one owes you anything. You work on yourself, you align yourself with the right people, with the right skills, and things kind of fall into place. So when coming to the book, I can go on about describing, what I'm into and what I love, but I think I want to focus on the book today, because we're here because of this book. So the amazing thing about this book is this was an idea, God-given. I can't even take credit. I was sitting at home on a Saturday morning. My husband was reading a book. I picked up the book. I was like, this is interesting. So in that book, there were about 50 individuals who co-authored the book. And then God said to me, you must do the same. But this time you're going to do with your fellow black people that you know, that are excellent, that have been working on themselves. They're not famous, but they've been working on themselves, because remember, most of us are lost in fame. You are lost in fame, you want to be famous, you want to be seen, but you forget to work on yourself. So God said, put these people together. People that are great. Put them together. Specifically black, because the black child, the black person is hungry for hope. The black person is hungry to know that they can also do it. They need to know that despite the challenges, they also have what it takes. So we cannot continue blaming. The question is, what can we do to advance our own progress, to become better? How do we contribute? Because we're also in a state of just being entitled to say our benefits, our right. We get lost in that. But what can you do? So I called the people that are in this book. These are people that I know. Most of them, I've known them for even up to 30 years.
Wow.
So the beautiful thing about that is then you have a relationship with these people, you share values with these people, then it's easier to work with them. They're professionals, they're entrepreneurs, they've worked on themselves, they're impactful people who are just not famous, but their type of impact and the stories they share can change anyone's life. So the beautiful thing about this book is it's not just one chapter where you get stuck and you get tired of reading the same thing. So each co-author shared a specific life story that is important to them, that they want to contribute to the world. So now when you read this book, you're able to cover mental health. There's about personal development. There's about womanhood. There's about leadership. There's about whatever that you can think of on average that we deal with as people. And I must also say, on average, everyone who is in here is doing well in their own personal right, but they come from struggle. So the reason that is important is you must understand that struggle is something that you find yourself in, but it's not your struggle. It remains your struggle if you don't choose to walk out of it. but you only walk out of a struggle when you start working on yourself. So this is a book put together from the day that the idea was dropped into my mind, because remember, God is the only person who drops things that change the world. It took us 16 weeks to prepare this book and publish it and have the book. 16 weeks is only 4 months from inception of the idea to the book being held in our hands. And keep in mind, the people that are in here are leaders. So being able to coordinate leaders who are willing to work together, contribute to a bigger impact, and said, we're going to do this together, we're going to work together. Because remember, it's very difficult to be led. Most people, we do not want to be led. We all want to be bosses. But we forget what Jesus said in the Bible. Somebody asked him, how do I become great? He said, if you want to be great, you must serve and serve the many. That is the only way to success. So what is being sold out there and that you guys are falling for quick, get quick this, quickly this, it does not work. Keep to the basics, you're going to be fine. God is the one who is in control. Because if you do anything else that he has not allowed or given you permission for, you are on your own, he cannot endorse it, he cannot support it. But when you're struggling through something that is endorsed, you will surely come out. Because Psalm 23 says, even when I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, meaning you will walk through the valley of the shadow of death, but you must walk through and come out. Don't stay there. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pepe. At this stage, I want you to talk about your chapter. I looked at the title and I think it's the right chapter to start this discussion with. I mean, you talk about women and women empowerment and family. And we see it all the time. The way sometimes people act is almost like the two cannot coexist. You and the ladies I've met in your group are accomplished women, family women, and at the same time you're really distinguished people in your own right. But at the same time, the way you conduct yourself is different from what we see that, if you're an empowered, successful woman and the family, you cannot be one and the same. Please, can you tell us more about your chapter?
Yes, so my chapter is slightly controversial from a point that we have been sold the idea of women empowerment. And it's a tricky one because remember, we're being told that as women we need to be empowered, make sure that men know that we have power. But there's a fine line between being feminine and being a feminist. And so now finding that balance and understanding that it's actually a superpower when you are a woman and you are feminine, and don't allow anyone else to tell you something else. As a medical doctor, I deal with a lot of obviously, when you come to a doctor, it's because something is not going okay, obviously. So most of the problems that I deal with, because part of my passion is mental health, obesity. I'm not talking to you. Obesity. Yeah. So mental health, obesity, and child health and skin. But all of these things are actually related because what happens is when we have what we call neuroinflammation, meaning when we are not doing okay in our minds, it affects our bodies. And when the two are not okay, then you also cannot make the right decisions. You are not functional and fit to be able to do what you need to do. So you cannot separate them. So most of the problems I deal with, so somebody can come to me and say, I have low abdominal pain, I have this painful sex, I cannot sleep, it's been a long time. So people come with different symptoms to me as a doctor, obviously, but most of the time I find that eventually after I've done all investigations, you find that I cannot find anything as the source of the pain or the presenting pain or the presenting symptoms, sorry. Eventually everything goes back to your childhood, okay? So the reason the childhood comes in and is important is all of us, when we are born, especially from birth until the age of 7, we are in the very sensitive age where our brain develops. And whatever that happens to us during that time determines how we will interact with life. So I also want you to have context of that. In South Africa, as black people, where most of you would come from a family where there's no father, the mother is there but all by themselves, and they are also, now we're into women empowerment. So you come from a place where you didn't get the nurturing that you deserved as a child, and there were no resources. So now you tell me that under those circumstances where the mother is not a happy mother to be able to nurture her child, and then you must take what you get because your mother is also doing her best. The father who's supposed to be there, not there, you have to move on. So now that is the average story of a black person, and it's still a reality, and this was systematic. So this is something that was created for us, if I can put it that way, where we have brokenness of family. And no one is talking about the brokenness of family and the impact it has on how you behave and react as an adult. So I want to put it to you this way. Whatever that you like or not like now, whatever you're attracted to and not attracted to now is based on what happened to you between your birth and the age of 7. So I'm giving you a secret for you to understand yourself. So from the age of 12 years, that is when we also have what we call adolescence. We become conscious, but around the same time, the brain waves change. So now you start becoming aware of yourself. So now when you become aware of yourself, then you start saying, what's wrong with, we ask you guys, what's wrong with this child? You're not listening anymore. You're not da-da-da-da-da, because remember, we do not have even the education to understand that child rearing is important and critical. So now women are not being encouraged. So now we have a different problem. We have more women who can afford now. We can even have a child without a man. You can even say, I can have a child, I don't need a man. I can have a child by myself. But do you understand the impact of bringing a child into this world who will not have a father and a mother? And it's being made kind of something casual that you don't need a father there. You don't need, no, unfortunately guys, we cannot change the rules. We did not make the rules. If the brain was made to receive inputs from a man and a woman to nurture this child to have a balanced perspective, because remember we have hormonal hormones that are from a male and hormones that are from a female. We also have traits and skills and training that we get from a man and a woman. They're different. So as much as we're being told that, no, let's just go with the flow, unfortunately the brain cannot take the new information, if I can put it like that. The brain is wired in a certain way that it needs that nurturing. And people are making us not take this seriously, but then we wonder why we struggle now. In your teenagehood, even women and men in 40s, 50s, 60s, they're still struggling because no one ever told them that, look, the trauma that you had when you were young, trauma doesn't necessarily mean that you were raped, because that is the extreme trauma. We also have what we call little T's. Just not having your mother there, just not having your father there, not having a safe environment, being raised by a mother who is very stressed. You can imagine if you are stressed, there's no way that you'll be able to give your child even a hug and tell your child that I love you. We might be struggling, but you have a future. How many of us have received that? Where your mother was in a good place to be able to affirm you and tell you that you have a future. Not many of you, I can tell you that much. Because it is in context of our country. Right. So now when it comes to the women empowerment, we have a different situation now where we can make money by ourselves as women. So money is not a problem anymore. And we also want to rise up in our roles. But no one is reminding us that women, and specifically black women, not all women, black women, as you're rising up, which there's nothing wrong, as you're rising up, don't forget the family. Don't forget the children. Because there's no nanny or amount of money that can nurture your child. Because when we leave our children with whoever that we leave them with, they become the parent. So my argument is that leadership is beautiful, it's important, and women are great leaders. But you have to choose to lead at the right time. When is the right time? When your child has gone beyond the very sensitive time. At least by that time you have done the best to nurture, stimulate this child so that when they get into the world, they are ready. So now we have a lot of adults that are emotionally blunt. You don't understand why you like this. You don't understand why you are confused in terms of how you see yourself. You don't understand why you are attracted to drugs. you don't understand why you depend on alcohol. But there's actually a process that happens in the brain between your birth and the age of 7. And if that stimulation doesn't happen, unfortunately, then when you get to above 12 years, then you experience the world as is.
Wow.
Long explanation.
Yeah, but important one. Ladies and gentlemen, as I indicated earlier, there are 6 authors here, ladies, and at this stage I would like to invite each and every one of them to come to the stage and introduce themselves. I can do that. You can supplement if you like, and also tell us a little bit about your chapter, and then after that, then I'll open this up for engagement with our students, with our staff. With your permission, I can start by inviting, I'm sure you are here, Kate, Kate Mefani, to the stage. Mefani is the founder and director of Focus of Optometrics, which was established in 2008. And at Focus Optometrists, she also offers eye care awareness and vision screening in the neighboring communities. Kate also has her master's degree in epidemiology. She wrote a chapter which is really a perfect fit to follow the introduction by Dr. Petla, which is, do you want to hear the title? I always knew I will be myself, ladies and gentlemen. Over to you, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, or should I say ladies and gentlemen? Yeah, I'm surrounded by youth. This is a very scary place. I remember myself in those days when I was your age. And before I start with my chapter, I just want to say, guys, enjoy being a student. And I'm not saying it's scary to be a parent or maybe to grow up or anything. But in the meantime, while you're still here, enjoy your days. The reason why actually I wrote this chapter is maybe growth. As Dr. Bibi was saying that, from my side, I would say I met myself 4 times. I was talking to my daughter today. I'm coming with my daughter, it's Nomfundo Mefani, my firstborn. Yes. So from my side, what I can say is that I met myself, if I were to say, it was 3 times. And I think actually the chapter is a combination of my growth, in a sense that I was once from a background where actually, as Black people, we've got a common way of saying about our background. Obviously, it's not like my parents did not love me or anything, but in these days, actually, when you go back and compare, you look back and say they had a way of showing you of how they love you, and you had to inhale everything so that you can be better. And I think God is a very wonderful, when you are reading Psalm 139, it says that I knew you from your mother's womb. So it's important that actually every now and then you go back to your inner self, and it doesn't start later in life when you are facing a turmoil or anything. I did not grow up in an environment where, religiously, my mother was teaching me the Bible or anything, but life challenges actually drew me closer to God, in a sense that obviously I met Dr. Bibi, I think now we've got 15 years if I'm not mistaken. I was practicing with her at Mbalendle, so in Secunda. Okay, I do have practices currently. I've got 3 practices, the other one Brongospreit and 2 in Kwamhlanga. But the bottom line is that when I was writing the book, I was in a journey whereby my businesses, the challenges that we had during COVID, actually you face a financial turmoil, being a mother, to build 3 beautiful children. It draws, when you're facing challenges, you must find a way to come back and say, however way that I'm solving this, it has to be consistent. It has to be in such a way that you don't draw yourself away from where God wants you to go. For an example, I'm a believer, and at some point, okay, if I were to bring it back closer, even as a woman, we get married, we are in a relationship or whatever situation that we're in, whatever partner that we meet, that partner also is going to be part of the reason why actually you try to improve or be a better person. And I think my chapter, it's all about self-realization, I don't know what to call this, like knowing yourself before you can know anything. And most of the time, actually, if you can get to know yourself, it becomes easier to know when there is things that you don't want, and you can even be able to say, okay, in terms of association, 1, 2, 3, 4 does not go with where I'm going. So this chapter, it was mainly more about knowing yourself so that you can keep focus, and whatever that you have in your life, you must know that it's not an accident. It's a perpetuation of your action, of your decision, of the things that you associate and assimilate yourself with. So for me, I'd say there is nothing like an accidental event that whatever that I have in my life. Like I'm currently pursuing my PhD in epidemiology, and I'm happy to say that I'm even collecting my data. Should be done soon, Prof. So yes, so I think more or less it's all about personal self, working on yourself, like Dr. Bibi was saying. And I think she's one of the ladies that indirectly, she'll keep on monitoring you, she'll keep on mentoring you. And every time when you are with people like that, you always, keep abreast. Remember now, when you are self-employed, at the stage where I am, nobody's forcing me to come here. Nobody's forcing me to write a book. There is no standard. But people like Dr. Bibi and even my colleagues, they always push you to a point where, you are eager to know yourself better. You want to know your capacity and your capability. And in these days that you are in, there is a lot of errors that we can fall in. But nevertheless, I think actually this was a journey that I really enjoyed. And I hope that you guys can enjoy my chapter also. And it makes some changes in your lives. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. I would like to invite Metofatso Petla Madire to also share a word or two about her chapter. Metofatso is an occupational therapist. She has a background in clinical occupational therapy in hospital and clinic settings and medical legal practice. She currently works as a vocational rehabilitation and fitness OT at a multinational energy and chemical company in Mpumalanga, here in the Republic of South Africa. And her chapter is about constantly overcoming imposter syndrome, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. There we go. I thought we were with students, but that's okay. I'm quickly going to confirm it now, if it's okay with you, Prof. I've got 2 minutes, so I'm going to ask everybody to quickly rise to their feet. The authors know what's coming. Quickly, I've got like 2 minutes. Right, quick exercise. I've got 4 statements, right? I'm going to ask you to please remain standing if you've ever been in a setting where you felt like your input was not valued because of where you come from. Please remain standing if you've ever been in a setting where you felt like your input was not valued because of your age. Please remain standing if your input was not valued because of the color of your skin. And lastly, please remain standing if your input was not valued because you did not give input. You were too scared to give input. All right, that's imposter syndrome. Okay, please have a seat. Please don't now go and diagnose yourself, walk around saying you've got imposter syndrome. But yeah, essentially, so I was at the varsity up the road, and that's where I came face to face with imposter syndrome. I would read before going to class, I would be prepared, and the lecturer will ask something, and as I do this, a small voice inside will be like, "Are you sure? No, that's wrong. Girl, they're going to laugh at you, just keep quiet." And then someone right next to me will put up their hand and say the exact same thing. And the lecturer will just be, that's a great question, that's a great input. And I'm just like, this happened for years. And I had no idea what it was. I wondered if I was the only person in the world that felt like that. Until I read up on imposter syndrome, and turns out there's a lot of us out there. Different ways, obviously, but a lot of people that are predisposed would be minority groups. I was a minority group in varsity. I think I was like 5 black people out of the entire class. So I always felt like, no, let the other people answer, you know. They know better. I was coming from Mpumalanga when I came up to Johannesburg, so, okay. So I'm going to move on. I want to wrap up the takeaway from chapter 10. I think what I want you to take away is, in the title, it says constantly overcoming imposter syndrome, which means that when you are in varsity, when you finish, you are going to go into the workspace, corporate, medical, wherever you are going to be in unfamiliar grounds. So you're going to experience imposter syndrome all over again. Because now you think, okay, I've overcome at student level, but then you have to go to junior level of work, and you find new challenges, new imposter feelings. So you have to know that you can constantly overcome it. I'm not going to go into the how. That's where the book comes in. Get the book, read the book. But know that at every level of your life, as you grow, as you rise, you must constantly overcome imposter syndrome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will now invite, and also being mindful of time, because we also want to get questions so we can engage. I'd like to invite Basitsana Mukamne. Basitsana is a seasoned corporate communication professional. She also holds a Master's of Business Leadership degree. Her chapter in the book is about hope in the midst of hopelessness, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity, Prof, and thank you for the opportunity, Dr. Bibi. My chapter is about hope. It's chapter 8. I'm a hope enthusiast. It's that space of seeing the light in the midst of darkness. So I hope that chapter will renew your strength. It will give you the hope that you had when you left home, that you know what, I'm going to UJ, I'm going to pursue this, and I'm going to achieve all the goals that I have. So along the way, Dr. Bibi, when she started, she spoke about the background that you go through as children between the age born, as you are born, and 7 years. Some of us, you went through a lot, but there is still hope. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Reading your chapter, it reminded me of the song of Jesse Dixon, I Saw the Light. Do you know the song? You guys, you know the song. He passed away recently. Anyway, and please allow me now to invite Dr. Cornelia Petler. Dr. Petler is a registered dietitian by profession with over 20 years of experience. She also offers lectures to students who are enrolled in the degree of dietetics. Her chapter in the book is on preventative nutrition. My physician tells me all the time that all the ailments we get come through the mouth. And reading your chapter, I realized that this is true. Of course, you have to trust your physician. Over to you, doctor.
Good afternoon, Prof. Good afternoon, Dr. Bibi. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Are you happy to see me? People, they don't like seeing dietitians. Yes. my chapter is talking about preventative nutrition in the book. What inspired me to write the chapter is people work hard nowadays. They work hard for their money. They work hard to have those fulfilling lives, but they neglect their diet. They neglect their nutrition to such an extent that, oops, a person is having chronic disease, which is not curable, most of them. They are long-term diseases. And then that person immediately, she can't walk anymore. She can't enjoy her money anymore. The money is a lot in the bank, but what's the use of having the money without enjoying it? So hence the book, Preventative Nutrition. You'll read more about it. I'm also doing private practice for those who want to consult individually in Pretoria. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Doctor. You know, they say you are what you eat, you know. Yeah. At this stage, I would like to invite Menkateko Mashele. Menkateko is the founder and director of Tandoami Holdings, a professional company that offers services in public speaking, master of ceremonies, and program directing. And her chapter in the book is about childhood trauma and adulthood depression. Over to you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I think, thank you so much for having us here. As the Prof has already mentioned, my name is Nkateko Mashele. And I think, Doc, you actually summed it up very well. You summed up my chapter very well. From childhood trauma to adulthood depression. Many times we find ourselves, we're adults, we take decisions and we stay in unhealthy situations, unhealthy relationships, not realizing that the root of it is what happened when you were still young. You were abandoned before the age of 7. Maybe you were raped, maybe, regardless of your situation. But what happens in that stage grows with you, and it magnifies as you go older, and it influences the decisions that you take and you make in life. You'll stay in a relationship because, but if I speak up, what if they leave me? If I speak up, what if they deem me to be, less than what I'm hoping that I am? We don't have confidence in ourselves. And that's where my chapter comes in. It took me being an adult, getting married, having children, staying in an unhealthy marriage, to realize that actually the problem is me. I have unresolved issues that I never knew of, because in our culture, you don't even talk about mental illness. What is that? What? Depression? What is that? Anxiety? Do you know what anxiety is in Zulu? Come on. Right? And it's only when I realized that actually my children are suffering, and I do not want my children to grow up with insecurities that I grew up with. So it costed me to work on myself. So, without going any further, that's my chapter 21, and it's to say that talk. Find somebody and talk. Sometimes you don't even have to go to therapy. Find a confidant, somebody you just need to talk, just to vent sometimes. Sometimes, my aunt will say, I just want to vent. Don't go hating my husband or go do whatever. This is about me, not the other person. I just want to let it out, because when we harbor it, that's when it actually hurts us the most. Thank you.
Thank you. Last but not least, I'd like to invite Mpho Nchangase. Mpho, ladies and gentlemen, is a risk and assurance middle manager at Eskom. She's an electrical engineer by qualification, and worked in this space for 13 years before moving to Risk. Her chapter in the book is about, it's an interesting title. I'll be honest, when I read the book, I went straight to this one first. Not Married for Love. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having us. Mponjangase, married, 2 boys. I work at a power plant. I'm a marathon runner. All of this is the reason why I wrote Not Married for Love. So, marriage is the one place where you get the certificate on day 1, not at the end. And just like a marathon, do you know that you can actually register and go to a marathon, run 42 kilometers without any qualification? Nobody's going to check that you can actually do that 42. Nobody's going to check that you actually qualify to get married. You can just get married. Nobody checks. And then you get in there and you're like, oh, what the hell is this? The same with the 42-kilometer marathon. You're going to get in there, you're going to get to 5 kilometers, and you're going to say, what the hell is this? And you're going to want love, and you're going to want the roses, and you're going to want the tenderness, and it's not always going to be there. You're going to want to wear mechi with your husband, and it doesn't work like that. And I just had to be the big sister that puts it down on paper to say, it's not a catastrophe when those things are not there. You actually have to rise to the challenge of marriage. You have to learn. If you go to your first marathon and you come back with the injuries, you don't put your 2,000 running shoes away and say, I'm never going to do this. Then you rise to the challenge and you find out, what do I need to do to get into this thing? What do I need to do to make it right? Then you start reading books. Then you start talking to other people. Then you realize, oh, so I actually need to go into this gradually. So I actually need to learn how to be married, because marriage is not the mechi, it's not the flowers. And you can actually still work at a power plant and be married and make it work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, marriage is not mechi. Ladies and gentlemen, this book has 32 chapters. We've heard from 7 amazing women. It means there's still 25 chapters to get through. I wish all the authors were here. We had all the time in the world and then we can engage. But life doesn't work that way. This is just a taste. The idea is that you get the book. These are amazing women who are professionals, you know, who are doing amazing things, have studied, continue to mentor others. You know, they set time aside, you know, to empower others and so on. And for that reason, let's give them a warm round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Now, in the interest of time, I want us to go into the next part of this engagement, where we take a couple of questions, and then you can choose who you want to direct your question to, and then we can engage. So we want to take as many questions as we can in this 1 hour. Please keep it short. And I mean short. And the answer will also be to the point. You know, short, not short of short, long, or anything of that sort. And then if you are short enough and you are clear, as you always are, as people associated with the great University of Johannesburg, Dr. Petlam and the team here informed me that they brought 10 copies. They brought more than 10 copies, but let me talk first about 10 copies. There are 10 copies to give away. I was not sure, Dr. Bibi, I had Dr. Bibi, whether I should mention this, because now everybody will want to ask a question with the hope of getting a book, but it's not a bad thing, isn't it? It shows that one wants to learn from this book. So there are 10 books to give away. Dr. Bibi will determine how these are given. But don't worry, there are also books that you can, there will be books for sale, let me rephrase, that you can purchase and take this valuable book with you home. So we'll take 3 questions, and then you must indicate to whom this question is directed.
Okay. One thing that I can say is that there's nothing that you can do if you yourself are not okay. Priority is number one. It's difficult, I know, sometimes in our families. Find that you're the eldest, you need to do certain things, but if you're not in the right space, mentally, emotionally, physically, it's not possible for you to care for somebody else. It's not possible until you get to a point where you speak to somebody, seek help. Most of the time you find that we're actually scared to even speak to our parents about these things because we don't have that open relationship with them. But I feel that you need to try. We're scared, but we've never even attempted to. And you might find that your family is more supportive and understanding than what you think. And if you still cannot, find somebody, find a trusted person, whether an elder in the family, speak to them and you'll have a mediator. But bottom line, you yourself need to be well before you can care for anybody else.
So that one is quite easy because it's easy from a perspective that what do you define as success? There are a lot of women that have powerful positions and broken children. So they don't talk about what happens at home. You see them on the magazines, you see their awards, but their children are broken. So what is success? And we cry of men being abusive as women. But who's raising this man? This man who wants children? Who nurtured this man?
Baby girl, the book does not prescribe. It does not prescribe. Remember that, like, it's a specific case. Specific cases are addressed individually. Your case needs you to consult so that there should be a thorough assessment and then check the medications that you are drinking, and then from there, tailored advice will be given. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to add to that. When it comes to side effects from medication, you should also engage whoever is prescribing the medication to you based on the side effects, because we also have a range of options that are available. So it's something that you must communicate and say, I notice. It's like with ARVs, you can have the same problem. Where there are side effects, people have nightmares and they end up having to buy your twice, because they're actually just hallucinating and having nightmares from the side effects of medication. So, linga twice for no good reason. So running a business is like running any institution. It's like even now at university, you are running a business because this is where you're at. So mental resilience starts right now. You don't start when you're out there. So as you speak now, you start working on yourself. You get the right mentors, the right friends, the right association. You do what you need to do now, because you're not going to be a different person out there. You are the same person now that you'll be in the future. So you work on yourself, follow the right people on social media, align yourself with where you want to go. You can't be saying you want that, but you're following people that are doing something else. So most of us are misaligned in terms of how we act and what we say. So find mentors and coaches and learn from them, because that is the best way. Sometimes you want somebody to come and take your hand. It's not always possible. But if you're fortunate, of course, it can be done. But do what you can do with what you have, because there's a reason you want it. Work on it.
So if they were similar, then they probably have similar ways of overcoming. Go to page 118. That's where I start discussing it. There are 4 steps. You first have to actually know or name what imposter syndrome is. So now we all know what it is. Step number 2 would be you try and find what is the cause of your imposter syndrome. Step number 3 would be now you start working on yourself. Read before going to class. Know how the timetable looks. Be prepared so that when the imposter syndrome comes in, then you also have to combat it with your readiness. And step number 4 is repeating step number 1, 2, 3 constantly.
I think in summary, I'm a product of 2 opposite worlds. My father comes from disadvantaged family in terms of no resources. His mother passed on when he was about 10 years. He had to take care of himself and his sister, family dynamics. So he comes from that side where poverty was part of it in a way, the challenges. While my mother is from the opposite, she was privileged to have a father who was a successful businessman, so she had everything. So my father, from what he didn't have, he wanted to have that. So he made sure, he committed to say what he didn't have, he will create for his children. They will not go through what he went through. And fortunately, because of that, then he comes into a place where he meets a woman who comes full because she had support, she had the nurturing, then it was easier. So I think from that perspective, I was fortunate then to say, I come from parents who consciously were present for me. And my father actually was more the one who was more present because he was consciously working on combating the disadvantaged environment that he was in. So I'm my father's daughter from a perspective that he took me everywhere. He told me what degree to study. He made me do MBA. Even now in the field that I'm in with mining, he said, you're going in. So it's also going to answer the same question about how do you get men involved. So we have to start the conversation and we have to make sure that you as men participate because you suffer just as much as women. Mental health is not just for women. If you think about that, each and every child is born. Boy or girl, you're a child. You're a human being. The nurturing is not that women need more attention than men. Men feel pain too. But men must also come up and say, we also want to be part of the solution. And then the easiest thing for men from top just said something very silly, sounds very silly. Please don't just zip your trouser. Don't give anyone a child if you're not ready to father that child.
So one thing that helped me to continue to love this person that was perfect when we were just going on dates, making sure that he smells good every time I see him, I had to remember that this guy actually used to share a bowl of inkomazi, hand eating it with his siblings. So now, if I just imagine that person to say, sometimes when you, as a lady, when this guy marries you, you want him to gaze at you every time and to be this beautiful thing like you were on the wedding day. But actually you smell kind of funny when you wake up in the morning. And it's not so cute all the time. So if you can just imagine that, I'm actually marrying somebody that as much as we gonna order fancy food now that we're dating, this person's favorite food is probably inkomazi and they wanna eat it by hand. So you want to imagine getting married to an actual person that cries, that has feelings. Then you separate the glamour from a human being that was born from a Zulu mother and a Mpedi father. Then it just simplifies it. Marriage is a destination. In Zulu, they like to say, ungena emshadweni. So when we get into this marriage, hence I'm not saying not married for love, but married to love. Yes, so when you get into this marriage, I imagine it to be a garden. So if Mr. Nchanga here, this very handsome man, married me this marriage now is our garden. And he comes, he plants the grass, he plants the flowers, but I don't water it. But Mrs. Madire next door waters the grass that Mr. Madire planted, waters the flowers. So now, what is my garden gonna look like in a year's time? But remember, this is marriage as well. That grass is growing. If Mr. Njanzi doesn't come back to cut now the grass and prune the flowers, how is our garden gonna look? Now that garden, as time goes by, it becomes a bush and it doesn't. So that is how you decide to say, I'm not gonna be in this garden for somebody to gaze at me. I'm actually gonna water and bring my part.
Wow. I think, ladies and gentlemen, we have received responses to the questions asked. I feel terrible, but we have to end this engagement. I wish there was more time. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give our speakers this afternoon a warm round of applause. From my side, there's a lot to take with me. I was touched, Doctor, when you mentioned an important point that people don't want to be led these days. The problem is that we all know, and we know so much, and the other problem is that we want to be vice chancellors in places where we should not be vice chancellors. You may be a leader, but you also don't want to be led, because you could lead in a particular space. It doesn't mean you can lead everywhere. Other areas you must leave it for those people that are designated to lead and be open to learn. And that is one thing that really I need to emphasize amongst many of the wonderful ideas shared this afternoon. One thing that I also picked, from this group, at least those that I met, and something that I want those present here and also those that have joined us online to take with, amongst many other great ideas, is that, no matter how accomplished you may be, don't stop being a human being. People, get a diploma, there's nothing wrong with that, please don't get me wrong. People get PhDs and then they start thinking they're better than other people. And I'm mentioning this because I picked the humility that you ladies carry yourselves with. For those that who raised their hands and hope to ask a question, I'm terribly sorry. Let's leave it for next time. There will be more. And thank you so much for your understanding. From my side, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank our speakers this afternoon. I know other people who contributed a book would have loved to come, and we understand. And we leave this for next time, that when you do the next volume, we'll bring them kicking and screaming. Now, we don't do that, but they're always welcome here at UJ. This high tea would be nothing without you, without the audience. Many of you are loyal supporters. You are at each and every high tea. We thank you.